Good evening, everyone. Our top story today, we have a slew of training camp injuries that we have to talk about. There's injuries to Chris Olave. There's concern, obviously, about Jonathan Brooks and what does his ACL mean for his fantasy value because he is not practicing yet. We were all hoping that he was going to be ready for training camp. That's not the case. Everyone saw Nick Chubb squatting 8 million pounds, but we don't know what that means because he's not practicing yet. There's so much happening as training camp started last week, and they continue to get really ramped up for most of the teams getting going this week. Hi, my name is Toomey. I go by FF Strategist on TikTok. Make sure you go there and give us a follow. Hop on TikTok. Don't be like an old guy. I'm an old guy, but don't be old like me. But also, obviously, if you're here, subscribe right now. We do this every single day. We're going live with the latest news, talking to you about different types of strategies. So make sure you subscribe to Player Profiler News on YouTube, on Twitter, everywhere else. But also join the mothership as well. So Player Profiler on YouTube, have a ton of followers, and we'd love to have you on that team. Anything you want to know about FFPC, best ball, Scott Fish stuff, like everything you need to know, every format you'd like to know, we have it over there. So we're going to hop into all of the training camp news, the Chris Olave story first on Player Profiler today. All right, so I'm a yapper. I'm going to try to make this a low yap type of show. Let's just kind of cruise through. Let's talk about the news, and I'll get you guys in and out talking about the latest stories. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to make sure that we're all speaking the same language when we talk about active pup, reserve pup, NFI list. Like, we just need to know what these terms are because I'm going to use them a lot. So I'm going to just read off some of these definitions. So the physically unable to perform list, or the pup list, that's for players who suffered injuries during football-related activities prior to the start of training camp. Now, you may also hear the reserve pup. That's when we get close to the season. If you're on the reserve pup, you're missing the first 4 weeks of the season. So those are players in fantasy we're able to throw onto IR spots and kind of get like a free draft pick, depending on who it is. Like, I expect Keaton Mitchell's likely going to be on that. I personally expect Nick Chubb to be on that, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And then the other list is the active non-football injury list. So this is for players who are unable to practice as a result of conditions unrelated to football. So if you got injured doing your own private workout, you would be on this list. Unrelated to football or injuries that did not occur during NFL games or practices. And so to start off, that is the list that Chris Olave is on. So Chris Olave was placed on the active non-football injury list. He's continued to work back from a shoulder injury that he suffered doing his own off-season workout. And that's why he spent a lot of his OTAs in a non-contact jersey when he was with the Saints. According to Nick Underhill, one of the beat writers for the Saints, they believe it's just like minor back tightness. They don't think it's like a big deal. Obviously something to monitor, but they don't think it's a big deal. It's hard to say. This is such a mixed case. I guess I'm bullish on Chris Olave. Like, I'm not I don't love taking him in the second round just like anybody else, but I think that there's people kind of conflating taking him that high and thinking that he's going to be really good. Like, I just don't personally like taking any of the players in the second round this year, basically. But if I'm going to take one, I'm fine with Chris Olave. Because at the end of the day, if I'm going to take somebody in the second round, I really need the opportunities to be there. And there is no reason to think that his opportunities aren't going to be amazing with the less weapons in this Kubiak scheme. All right, so I think, he's had 1,000 yards receiving every single year of his career, and it hasn't been great. No one's going to say, like, oh, my God, he's killing it. But I guess I'm here to say is, like, even though he's scary at his ADP, he has top 5 receiver upside. I'm not misquoting that. He has top 5 receiver upside. If you think that is crazy, like this video, put a comment in the chat. Let me know if it's crazy or not. Also, you could throw something in the live chat too. I'll be checking that as well and replying to your feedback. But yeah, I think Chris Olave could be top 5. So let's talk about it. His ADP again, wide receiver 12, 17th overall. That's middle second round and 12 team. Like, it's high, man. It's really high, and I get it. Like, I prefer if I can get Olave in the early third, I'm truly fine with it. Like, even honestly, late second, I don't care as much. Middle second is tough, but I actually think he could deliver on that. So I really wanted to understand, like, a lot of people are just looking at his past 2,000-yard seasons and saying that he just can't do it. He just doesn't have the it factor. And from a drops perspective, from just not making big time plays, 100% I hear you. But I don't care about that as much in this scheme. So in the past offensive schemes that they have for Chris Olave, they truly were just like, hey, run a seam, just go run down the field vertically. We're going to get you the ball. Hopefully you catch it. And for a player like Chris Olave, he has all the speed in the world, but he is just not that type of guy. He is terrible at contested catch. Like, he's just not it in that sense. And he always struggles with drops. So that is a concern for a wide receiver. I hear you. But in this Kubiak scheme, which is on the Shanahan tree, Clint Kubiak, he was the passing game coordinator for the 49ers last year, where they had the one of the best passing seasons that we've seen in a while. The efficiency was crazy. Like, Olave stepping into the Ayuk role. Now, Brandon Ayuk is significantly better than Chris Olave. Brandon Ayuk, honestly, is probably like a top 5 receiver in the NFL, period. That's another aside. But I really just wanted to compare what we saw from Chris Olave in his pass scheme to what we've seen in the Shanahan tree type of scheme. So I was going to compare Chris Olave to Brandon Ayuk, Nico Collins, who's with Bobby Slowick, who's also with the 49ers 2 years ago, now with the Texans, and then Puka Nacua, who he played with LaFleur, who came also from Matt LaFleur's brother, Mike, who came from the 49ers as well. And so Puka Nacua was kind of the wide receiver one. I just want to see, what do all these wide receiver ones look like in the scheme? And maybe we could think that Chris Olave could kind of step into that. All right, so let's just kind of compare some of the main stats. I'm not going to go through everything, but like from a target share perspective, Chris Olave was 17th. All these other guys, for the most part, I expect that to stay pretty flat. Like, he had 25.2% of the target share. That's pretty consistent across all those main receivers. Red zone target share, I expect his numbers to jump up. So he had 18.8% red zone target share, which is not bad, but especially compared to like Nico and Puka, like Puka had 20.5% red zone target share. Nico had a crazy 28.3 red zone target share. I don't think Chris Olave is going to get that. But when you truly think about the fact that Juwan Johnson is going to likely miss a couple of games this season, you have no Michael Thomas anymore, and the next best target is Rashid Shaheed, who I love at his ADP. He is not like a major red zone threat like that. You obviously have to compete with Alvin Kamara down there. I think they're going to try to run a lot more efficiency, and they'll be successful at that. Taysom Hill's always going to steal some. But if you're getting Chris Olave in like the 21-ish% red zone target share, him getting to 10 touchdowns is not impossible at all. Next, air yard share, again, pretty consistent across those players, even with Chris Olave right now. This is one of the things, this is kind of where we start to see the big difference. Yards per route run. So the amount of times you're producing yards per the amount of routes you're running. Chris Olave was pretty bad at that. He was 21st in the NFL with 2.08. But here's the next three guys. In Ayuk, third in the NFL, 3.18. Nico Collins, second in the NFL, 3.24. Puka Nacua, sixth in the NFL, 2.72. This scheme just improves your efficiency significantly. You are producing so many more yards per the amount of routes that you're running. Same thing could be seen with like the EPA. I know a lot of that obviously is player dependent, but like Brandon Ayuk, his EPA was second in the NFL with a 107.3, which is wild. Nico Collins, he was fifth in the NFL with 93.4. Puka was sixth in the NFL with 84.8. Yeah, Chris Olave was 28th with 44.4. So the amount of times that he's producing and helping his team score points, that's what EPA kind of measures. And Chris Olave is still going to be due for a jump. Like, you could say he drops the ball a ton, so I don't think he's going to produce like those other guys produce. But if you look at like Puka's numbers in particular, Puka had a ton of drops. Like, he actually, from a true catch rate, Puka was ranked 76 in the NFL and still produced at a top 4 wide receiver level. Whereas Chris Olave was a little better with a 63rd in the NFL true catch rate. And still, like, I just think that this scheme makes it's like an easy button for receivers. Like, I know how much you guys may not like Chris Olave, but man, you just got to look at this. The scheme matters so much. On a team who I don't expect to be very good, who's likely going to be passing the ball a decent amount, And if you want to say anything about Derek Carr, he supported Devontae Adams going crazy 2 years ago. So I truly think that we are sleeping on him in this scheme with the lack of receivers around him. He has top 5 upside. You can take him in the second round, and it'll be okay. Just take a cold shower. All right, guys. So we're going to move on to the next topic. But first, let's talk about this draft kit. Pay attention to this one because this is going to be important for you guys to win your leagues.
Hey, it's the Podfather. I have great news. The draft kit is live. It is world famous. Why? Because it is the best resource for winning fantasy football championships that exists. There are rankings and cheat sheets for every format you can imagine. We have projections both at the team level and the player level. And wherever you are, you can click on a player, open them up, and see in-depth written analysis about what to expect in fantasy football from that player this year. And then you can click on the team, and you can get even more in-depth analysis, all the drivers of fantasy production, both in a positive and negative direction for that team, including a signature trend. And the graphics are incredible. So these team insights, they give you the team-level projections, the vacated targets, the vacated ARs. And we added a bunch of features. I mean, individual cheat sheets for Theo and Billy and Dario. So you could take your favorite analyst and download their personal draft cheat sheet. And then in the commissioners section, Memphis Young lays out everything you need to know to manage a league. The best minds in the industry contributing analysis. It's certainly not the most inexpensive draft kit on the market, but it is the best. PlayerProfiler.com/draft kit. PlayerProfiler.com/draft kit. Go get it.
$45, guys. Come on now. Like, I mean, if you really like, one thing that I know in fantasy, at least on this side of it, a lot of people just kind of want to like offload the decision making. Like, this is go get the draft kit, $45, significantly less than most of everyone's league fees. Like, hey, invest in that so you can talk smack to your friends. All right. Next story, another guy on the active non-football injury list. And I didn't mention this before. If you're on that list, you can be activated anytime. So same thing for Chris Olave. But the next person is Jonathan Brooks. So I got to eat a little bit. Got to eat a little bit of crow here. I in my head, I knew that Brooks was going to be ready to go by training camp. There was some optimism. There were some reports saying, oh, he may make it. But, I mean, honestly, Dave Canal said he wasn't going to be ready for training camp, and that's what happened. So Jonathan Brooks is on the NFI list. Obviously, he suffered a torn ACL when he was I guess he was a junior at Texas last year in November. And so that, I mean, it's a pretty aggressive timetable to think that he will be back this quickly. Optimistically, if you really think about like a player like a Breece Hall, and how he recovered and how he was on the field at the beginning of the year, which I expect Jonathan Brooks to be, and kind of really started to go crazy at the end of the year. That's what I'm hoping and then foreseeing for Jonathan Brooks. I think I'm just trying to say that we have to adjust our excitement for Brooks because the scheme is so amazing, but we just have to understand that he is not fully healthy yet. Even if I think he's gonna practice some during training camp. I think he'll be ready to play at the beginning of the season. I just don't think we're going to see the Jonathan Brooks we saw in Texas until probably midway through the season. So, yeah, my headline is, honestly, it's not bad to think about Chubb at this point. Like, we really could start to pick him up because I do think he's going to handle RB1 duties. And it's at least interesting. Like, one, I'm still drafting both. I'm going to buy the dip on Jonathan Brooks. I don't know if I said that. Definitely buying the dip on Jonathan Brooks. I don't want to pay too much for Chuba, but there's a world where I'll do like a buddy system type of thing and get both of them because the Dave Canales scheme is a running back centric scheme from a carries and from a receiving standpoint. And while Chuba's not the most exciting player in the world, you're going to get Chuba. Where are we getting him? In the 13th round? It'll probably rise a little bit, but I mean, 12th, 11th round, that's not bad for somebody who's likely going to start. And again, they target the running backs a ton in the passing game, like we saw with Rashad Wright last year. So one thing that we just like looking at Rashad White's numbers, this is how Dave Canales ideally wants his running back position to operate because it was amazing last year with Rashad White. Second most carries, tied with CMC with 272, ninth most targets, 13th highest target share, which honestly feels low based on how he's producing. Second most routes run. And then he had this is the problem with Rashad White, 57th true yards per carry. So he had 5 true yards per carry. I think his number last year was like 3.6 in real numbers. And also his breakaway run rate was trash. So in this scheme, again, Dave Canales is going to give his running backs all the opportunity in the world, even if they're being incredibly inefficient, like we saw with Rashad White last year on the ground. But he's also going to get the ball in their hands in the air, get them in space, and make something happen. So to me, I'm fine with starting Chuba if I'm like desperate, just having him on my bench, and then like really just holding on to Jonathan Brooks. I do think it may be like a week 8+ type of deal where he starts to turn up. Last few games of their season is Dallas, Arizona, and Tampa Bay. We all don't know what the defense is going to look like. I personally expect the Dallas defense to take a slight step back with the loss of all those pieces and their DC. Arizona, they're always like a tough out, but I'm still not scared of them like that. And then Bucks, I'm always going to be scared of them as long as Vita Vea is playing. But it's not an impossible route, and especially again, like I said, regardless of the run defense, you got to cover this guy too out of the backfield. I think that Chuba Hubbard, if you invest in him in early season, you have a breakout candidate in Jonathan Brooks. But again, you're going to have to be patient and wait until halfway through. So that kind of sucks. But I personally think that when healthy, Jonathan Brooks is a significantly better player than Rashad White. I hope that's not even controversial. I feel like that's pretty obvious. Like Rashad White, amazing pass catcher. He's awful, like awful, 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 awful as a ball carrier. And so I do worry about Rashad White's role with Bruce Irving now in the mix. But as a pass catcher, he's one of the best in the NFL. I think Jonathan Brooks, amazing down in, down out runner, amazing vision, creates amazing amounts of like additional yardage because of just angles and his understanding and his vision. Not like a burner or anything. He ran like a 4.5, but fast enough. And then he also is dangerous in the passing game because of that vision too. So again, Jonathan Brooks higher than Rashad White. And if you're going to give him that type of opportunities, especially in the second half of the season, Jonathan Brooks could be a league winner, but you're going to have to wait for half the year. Okay. Next story. I'm going to talk about old man Mixon. We're going to talk about Joe Mixon. Everyone's so excited to talk about him. All right, so Joe Mixon said Friday that he's spending training camp preparing to handle a large workload, on which he expects will go hand in hand with his role in the Texans offense, according to Aaron Wilson of KPRC2 in Houston. And so that's cool. I wanted to talk about Joe Mixon because nobody ever does. He's one of the ugliest. That sounds so bad. Like one of the ugliest fantasy picks. I'm not talking about his looks or anything, but one of the uglier fantasy picks you'll ever make. But he's always going to be solid. I do think like he's worth a flyer at his current ADP. He's going like 4th, 5th round right now, RB13. And I think he has some upside based on that ADP, but I just worry about like the PPR ceiling there, like we've typically seen him in his past. He's been one of the most consistent running backs over the last few years, very similar to like a James Conner. When they're healthy, they're just producing. Like never, it's not going to be pretty. They just produce. They get in the end zone and they at least mix and catches a decent amount of balls. Over the last 5 years, these are his finishes. So last year he was RB6, 52 receptions on 64 targets and 3 touchdowns. I'm just going to do the receiving because I'll talk about the rushing. 2022, 60 of 75 targets for 2 receiving touchdowns. And then the other years, he's always pretty decent. Like 2023, he was RB6. 2022, he was RB10. 2021, he was RB4. 2020, he missed 10 games, so he was RB49. But then 2019, RB13. And 2018, he was RB10. So basically, wow, can't do math. 5 of the last 6 seasons, he's been the top 13 running back, and he has a lot of good receiving output. And he really needs that because he's been incredibly inefficient. These are his yards per carry for those years. 4 yards per carry last year, 3.9 the year before, 4.1 the year before that, 4.1 before the 2019 season. Then he was at 4.9 in 2018 when he literally was a second-year player. He is incredibly inefficient, but because of the volume, because of the touchdowns on the ground, and obviously because of his passing game, he's a really reliable player in fantasy. And I think he could potentially do that stuff. So again, 4th, 5th round, I'm fine with it. But we are asking CJ Stroud to do something that he hasn't done, at least in his first year. And then we're going to potentially be asking Joe Mixon to just produce on the ground because I don't know if the air opportunity is going to be there. All right, so the thing with CJ Stroud versus like playing with Joe Burrow is Joe Burrow consistently is one of the top check down quarterbacks in the NFL every single year. He is just always up there. He always, I mean, one, he's getting under pressure a lot. But then two, I mean, he's not like a big runner like that. Like he will gladly put the ball in the hands of his weapons to let them do something after the catch. And CJ Stroud, at least last year, did not do that at all. So Joe Burrow was a top 4 quarterback in checkdown rate with 8.9% checkdowns on his passes. CJ Stroud was bottom 6 with 4.98, so basically 6% checkdown. And I expect that to probably go up as a quarterback gets older and more comfortable in their offense and learning how to just kind of take the layups. But I also think it's going to be like you have just a lot of really good targets. Like you have a Stephon Diggs, who I do think may be like a murderer on the short stuff. Like he may not be running all the deep stuff he used to do with the Bills, but I do think he could still like dust a corner very quickly and hit his marks. So I do think that's going to be impactful to like the short passing game. Dalton Schultz is not going anywhere. I keep hearing about Cade Stover. And then obviously you got like Nico Collins and Tank Dell coming back with a vengeance. So it's just a lot of competition to compete with. And then also CJ Stroud just, at least in his first year, did not show like a high check down rate. So that's some of the concern I have about Joe Mixon's PPR upside. But I think in standard and half, I'm not scared of it. In PPR, I probably would knock him into the 5th maybe. But I still think it's worth a flyer at that point. All right. Okay, we're cruising through. Next story. So if you're watching this live, put it in the chat. But if you're watching this I'm going live on Sunday night. If you're not watching this on Sunday night, put this in the comments. Do you think, and I'm going to give you guys 10 seconds because I'm going to wait. I need you guys to put something in the comments. Do you think that Nick Chubb is going to play at the beginning of the season, week 1? Do you think Nick Chubb will be active week 1? Put it in the chat. Let's go. Come on now. Put in the chat. Do you think Nick Chubb is going to be ready to play week 1? Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Y'all are not participating today. Come on now. Nick Chubb, is he going to play week 1 of the NFL season? Let me know. Oh my gosh, you guys are such just shy little people today. Anyway, so Nick Chubb is not going to play week 1, guys. It's not happening. Nick Chubb is not going to play week 1. It's not happening at all. Cleveland Plain Dealer reports that Nick Chubb with his ACL is expected to be beginning training camp on the active PUP list. No news on a potential week 1 availability. If you follow me on TikTok, FF Strategist, follow this show every Sunday at 7, or any of our guys, but follow me in particular, or anybody, anytime I've been on any show in this network and I've talked about Nick Chubb, that should be no surprise to you at all. And it should also not surprise you that I do not expect him to be active week 1. He's not going to play. They've not talked about it. He barely started running earlier this summer. There's zero chance that Nick Chubb is starting week 1, period. That's just not going to happen. Guaranteed not going to happen. Save the tape. Nick Chubb not playing week 1. Save it. Because, obviously we saw that leg injury was gruesome. Same leg that he got decimated, same knee rather, that he got decimated in college. We got to stop acting like he's a young spring chicken anymore. Like he is just not. The way that so they were talking about his recovery, saying that he's progressing nicely. They said that in early May. Never really said that he's ahead of schedule or anything like that, but they said he's progressing nicely. Thank you. Plan B up in here. Plan B. Yeah, of course. I don't think Nick Chubb is going to play week 1 at all. And I just think that people have gotten so gassed up over him squatting like that really heavy weight. I can't do that. I'm not going to pretend like it's not impressive. Like 585 pounds is no feat. I don't weigh that much, but I mean, still, it's a lot. But I do want us to start to learn as a fantasy football community. We just have to be just a little. You just got to do a little bit more critical thinking. I don't really care about that at all until I see him cutting, jumping, doing football maneuvers in a football way. That's all that matters to me. he got so like that knee is so mangled. I honestly think it's not like 50-50, but it's about like 20% that he may just retire before he plays this season. I think that is a true possibility if you're just thinking the long term for Nick Chubb. And I wouldn't even fault him for that if he were to retire. Like, it's just I'm not gassed up over him squatting that weight. They have not told us anything about him being ahead of schedule. They're just saying he's progressing nicely and being very coy about it. They restructured his deal. So the Cleveland Browns restructured his deal to give him $2 million guaranteed this year. And the reason they said that, this was the reporting, is that they wanted to ensure that he did not rush himself back onto the field. I do not know how much more information I need to tell you that he is not playing week 1. They are basically telling you, we're going to let him ease into it. We're not going to rush him back onto the field. Like, they love Nick Chubb, so they're not going to do anything that's going to harm him. I don't know, man. I don't know. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I feel like I'm the only one who's just saying this consistently. Don't overdraft Nick Chubb. You're not going to get Nick Chubb. Right now, his ADP to me is just too high, even if it's for an IR spot. I think I've seen him go in the 8th. I've seen him go in the 7th round, guys. That's way too high for a player who may not play for the first 4 weeks of the season. I think that's pretty much a guarantee. And then let's just kind of play this out, right? So let's say he starts on, again, the reserve pup. That means you're out for at least 4. Starts on the reserve pup, 4 weeks. Let's just be generous and say he's back on the field after 4 weeks, which I think also would be really generous. Back on the field at week 4. Do you think he's going to be the Nick Chubb of old when he hops onto the field? Nope. Not at that age, not with that injury. So I do think it may take him another 4, potentially 5 weeks to turn into a Nick Chubb that even resembles what we're talking about. Because again, even if you want to compare this to Brees, this is not the same. He got his knee got effed up. So this is not the same. So, all right, so we got 4 weeks on the pup. Let's call it 5 weeks until we see Nick Chubb even looking like he used to look. You got 8 weeks left in your season. You know what I mean? And obviously 3 of those are the fantasy playoffs. So really you only have you got 5 usable weeks of Nick Chubb. Is that worth a 7th round pick? No, it's not. Even if you have the IR spot. Now, if Nick Chubb is sitting there for you in the 10th, 11th, honestly, for me in the 11th, 12th plus round, and you have at least 2 IR spots, then perfect. Put Nick Chubb on your team, park him in an IR spot. Maybe you go get Jerome Ford if you like, and then you at least lock down a run-heavy scheme. Solid. But unless that's the exact situation, do not draft Nick Chubb in the 7th round, guys. That's just nuts, man. It's just, I think, honestly, I'd be surprised if we just never saw the old Nick Chubb again. It's just that knee injury. I sometimes feel like we take advantage of this stuff because, I've never had an injury like that, but that takes a lot to come back from at that age. You just got to start thinking about your long-term health. And I don't know why. I don't know why we think that he's going to just return to the old Nick Chubb like he didn't do the next season when he got injured in Georgia and he was basically a teenager. I don't know why we think this is going to be different this time when he's older. He's going to just bounce back. I don't know. Just talking in circles. Now, I told you guys I was going to have a low yap show, and my yap rating is going too high. So let's just end with the quick hits, okay? I'm going to run through some of these stories really quickly. Again, if you guys have questions, this is the time. If you have questions, comments, feedback, anything, throw it in the live chat or just like the video, put it in the comments, and I'll respond to you, okay? All right, so ESPN's Courtney Cronin reports that the Bears are working out a plan for rookie Caleb Williams to get reps in preseason games. Based on what we're hearing, it actually seems like he may play even the Hall of Fame game, which that would be really exciting. We all know that game usually sucks. They are the third stringers in there. I think that would be really cool to see the number 1 overall pick potentially play a couple series in that game. I have my concerns about Caleb Williams in his rookie season, not long term. I just think that rookie season he's going to be a really high turnover guy. Just based on the way he played in college, I know he can improve, but based on the way he played in college, based on his confidence level, which isn't going anywhere, some of his throws you're just not going to do that in the NFL. Some of the times he's scrambling, making plays, you're not going to do that in the NFL, especially with the way you're holding the ball. They're going to get some fumbles. You're going to throw some picks. I just think he's likely to me to lead the rookies in interceptions year 1. But I think long term he's going to be a great player. Next, CJ Stroud said, I want to definitely attack downfield more this year. And I mean, I thought that was funny because he literally was at the top of the league at that already. So I think per PFF, he led all quarterbacks with 9.4 average depth of target. And then he was 14th in deep attempts, which is a little lower, but he was also second only to Brock Purdy in deep completion percentage. So I guess he just wants to increase his attempts, but I mean, he's connecting when he's throwing, so I guess I see the reason for that. I think that's really interesting because I guess it kind of relates to the next story. So Nico Collins, he was actually banged up a little bit, but he at least practiced when they opened training camp. He was sidelined this spring and he was recovering from a shoulder surgery. I sometimes think we forget how injury prone Nico Collins can be. That's just a discussion that really hasn't happened too much this offseason. But I mean, Nico, what is he? He missed I think he missed 12 games so far in his career. I think like it's about like 4 games per year. And with Stephon Diggs now in the mix, with Tank Dell in the mix again, and you're talking about all this vertical throwing, like I do think like those two players are going to eat away at Nico's share. I mean, you talk about a player whose value continues to crash to me is Nico Collins. Like I love Nico. But like I said earlier in the show, 28.3 red zone percentage is not happening with Stephon Diggs in the mix. Now with Joe Mixon in the mix, you're getting Tank Dell back. It's just there's zero chance that he's going to repeat that. And I think that was so much of his fantasy production. He was actually getting out-targeted by Tank Dell when they were both healthy. You have Stephon Diggs now who will challenge that red zone opportunity. And like I said with Joe Mixon, I just think those are the reasons why Nico Collins, there's zero chance he's going to repeat what he did last year. He's still going in the second round to me. He needs to go way lower than that. I love Tank Dell's value in the 6th still better than that. But all that to say, Nico Collins, way too high ADP. CJ Stroud, his ADP is pretty damn solid. And I do think if they're going to increase the amount of times they throw downfield, that's the more the merrier for me. I love it. I love that. All right, next quick hit. Saints signed Rashid Shaheed to a 1-year extension, $5.2 million contract extension. Super great for him. I think it feels like they know something that we don't know, and hopefully he's going to get a bigger deal next year. I do feel like he's auditioning not to be the number one, but he's auditioning for a big role. I already talked about at the beginning of the show, this offense that they're in with Kubiak this year, it creates so many opportunities for players to do stuff after the catch. They just get the players in motion. And he was already really good down the field, Rashid Shaheed, significantly improving every year of his career. And I've said this before. I've said this again on TikTok, FF Strategist. Chris Olave is the number one. And I just talked to you about the opportunities that he's going to have. Always a concern, I guess, with him is like the contested catch and the drop weights for Chris Olave. But I do think it's like a 10% chance that Rashid Shaheed just kind of comes out of nowhere and just really takes the job. So, again, I love Chris Olave. I'm still going to take him, and the opportunities are there. But Rashid Shaheed in the 12th round, I also think is a really solid investment if you're looking for some late upside receivers because, again, there's nobody there who's going to catch passes like that. Juwan Johnson's going to be out for a couple of weeks. I think there's a lot of opportunity in this offense for them. Next. Jordan Love, he's working on his contract. I know there was like a recent story about that. Let me just see. He said, I don't have it. Yeah, basically, he started talking about his contract to a reporter, and the PR person came in and said, shh, nope, no, we're not talking about it. He showed up to training camp. I don't believe he's going to do a hold-in. And it just does sound like the ball is in the Packers' hands right now for them to get a contract extension done, but it does seem like this is pretty much a guarantee. But he also was talking about Dontavion Wicks. And I just wanted to take this time to really just talk through, like, I think that we are not appreciating that Wicks really can blow up this year. Like, there's actually, I'm going to talk about a few receivers. So I talked about Rashid Shaheed. I'm going to talk about Wicks. And I'm going to also talk about Josh Palmer. Every draft I have, I'm getting those 3 guys. Because I think at least one of them, maybe 2 are going to pop off. And I think Dontavion Wicks has all the skill set to do it. Like, he was getting comparisons by his head coach to Devontae Adams on his release packages and his footwork. Jordan Love, the story is basically saying that he's going to have a monster season this year. He is one of the most reliable receivers that you're going to find. And if you're Jordan Love, there's no reason why you're not going to continue to target him when on third downs, he's 93% converting for a first. And then I think he was 13th in the NFL on first downs per route run. He's not even just earning the targets. He's getting first downs and being productive with those. He was one of the best on the team and in the league in yards after catch. He was ninth yards after catch after week 10 when he started playing a lot more. And that was for a team who struggled significantly with yards after catch in Green Bay. And he's also always open. Like has a 72% success rate versus man. Like Wicks is the best receiver there. Dontavion Wicks is the best receiver in Green Bay. And I know that hurts to say. I know there's so many Jaden Reed fans. There's even a lot of Jaden Reed fans at this network. And I like Jaden Reed, but they have not, at least in the first year, they did not show that they are using him the right way. That is a guy who could run he could run routes like he's a great route runner. But they just continue to give him those gadget plays and stuff. So if that's going to continue and you add in a Josh Jacobs, I just think that those design plays are going to be significantly less. But if you're not going to allow him to run real routes, I just don't know where the upside is there, because I don't think he's going to score at that incredibly high clip, especially, again, with a player with Wicks who's just winning so easily on the outside. I think because of that, he's also just a better version of a Romeo Doubs. And I think with Christian Watson, I'm just not banking on that anyway. So, again, if you're going to take a player in like the 13th, 14th round who has the wide receiver on a team upside, take him. Take Dontavion Wicks. He could really blow up. I'm not saying he's going to be the next Puka, but I do truly believe he's the wide receiver one in Green Bay. All right, next hit. Next quick. Let's go. All right, so I guess we just talk about Palmer. So the Athletics' Daniel Popper said he thinks the Chargers will use Joshua Palmer, Ladd McConkey, and DJ Chark in their 11 personnel sets. That's not surprising at all. We all know what's going on with QJ. I don't like saying players are bust in their second year, but we all know what's up. We all know what's up with QJ. It just ain't gonna happen, right? And so I do think that Palmer, he has been really gelling with Herbert, clearly has a rapport with Herbert. I think there's an opportunity for like Palmer to really step it up. He does a lot inside and outside. And then again, I've said this before. If you think about the personnel like groupings, like Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh, when they're together, and even when Greg Roman was with the Ravens, I mean, they were going 22 a lot, like 2 tight ends, 2 running backs. Sometimes they're going like 31, like 3 tight ends, 1 running back. Like they have heavy sets. And in that situation, it's just hard for especially like slot players like a Ladd McConkey to get on the field. I know I think he's a decent blocker. I'm assuming so if you're on the field at Georgia. But I also know that Josh Palmer is pretty good at that. And he's been clearly the number 1 in camp. He has the rapport with Justin Herbert. I do think that is a guy who's being completely slept on. Like last year, actually over the last 2 years, when he has gotten an opportunity to play without Allen and without Williams, he was basically averaging around like 14 PPR points per game. And that would have been good enough for wide receiver 17, which was Adam Thielen last year. Now, Adam Thielen isn't like amazing, but if you're getting wide receiver 17 in like the 12th plus round, why not, guys? So again, I do think that Rashid Shaheed, Dontavion Wicks, what is his name? I keep wanting to say Jordan Palmer. Joshua Palmer. Gosh. Shaheed, Wicks, Palmer. One of those 3 is going to pop off for you super late, and maybe it's going to be 2, but I do think they could be league winners. All right, next. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. There's nothing next. Thank you guys so much for hopping on the show. Sorry, I was trying to speed through it. I appreciate you guys coming and joining the live. Make sure, again, before you leave here, tap the notification bell to make sure you know whenever we go live like this. Again, we're trying to go live every single day at 7 p.m. I'm the 7 o'clock slot on Sunday, so make sure you guys hop in for that. Again, my name is Toomey. I go by FF Strategist on TikTok. It's in the description if you want to go to that page. And I'm putting out content every day there. I'll go live all the time there too. Just trying to make sure that we have all the information to help you guys win your leagues. All right, guys. Have a good one. Peace out.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.